where the political dichotomy essentially stems from
Yeah.
is related to this kind of split in thinking itself, or in the structures of thought that make up our unconscious mind.
Like male versus female brain type vibes? Or like, do you think
Yes.
a third position could kind of exist? Like a third category?
That's a good question. I actually think it can't.
It can't.
And
It's impossible. It's an impossibility.
yes, and I'll try to explain why.
Non-binary does not exist. Non-binary brain is not real to you.
So, I mean, I've been arguing with people about this, and I've gotten a lot of flack, obviously. It's not really that there isn't some sort of aspect of neutrality, but okay, I mean, here's how I would reframe it. Even if you were to be non-binary, in every instance of life where your gender is really going to come into effect, I don't just mean in a very vague, abstract kind of like label, like, oh, I got the correct label, but it's like, how are people going to see and treat you? Generally will get broken down into two types, and you'll get gendered either way. I mean, that's an imposition from outside society that doesn't represent what they feel internally, but what does it mean for the two sides of the gender binary if we do accept there's a sort of non-binary, is it a middle point or is it an outside point of the binary? Obviously there's other people who would say that they're like agender, or some other kind of label that implies that it's like not related to the binary at all, but non-binary itself kind of implies that at best it's kind of not taking to either one of those sides, but still existing in the paradigm of two polarities, where it's a bit like, I like to think of this example, superposition in quantum mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
You ever hear about like how like qubits work and things like that, and like superposition? Like you have a waveform that has a probability of being a certain of two states, or I mean, it could be more depending on how you perceive or structure it. But essentially, there's an intermediate position that is only existing as a probability of some sort, where when you go to check what that is, essentially when you apply some sort of mechanism of observation, the waveform collapses into one of those states, right? So the probability is reduced to something that is changed through perception to take one of two sides. And I think that the structures of thought and the way that gender works is similar. So with regards to non-binary people, they are able to claim it as like a legal identity. And I think it's probably even a good thing that we need a way to, within the context of how we understand gender as a society today, to give people some room to just be like a third thing and try to not completely get bound up in the labeling of the other two genders. But it's an incomplete solution in a way. And yeah, oftentimes it doesn't mean a whole lot to people, because I'm sure you've ran into others who say stuff like, well, like, isn't everybody kind of non-binary to some extent? Or, like a woman, gender critical woman who doesn't accept the impositions of female gender that were given to her, she might claim like, okay, well, temperamentally and personality wise, I have aspects of both, so I'm non-binary, but like the label doesn't count or something.
Yeah. Can I push back a little? I understand where you're coming from in terms of like this first person identification point of view, but you talking about only two genders makes me think of this thing I read a while back before my JREG interview about like this trinary. Do you know where I'm going with that? The like
no, go ahead.
Man, woman, freak. Like there's like three.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I sent you that article also about it, right?
Yeah.
The trans-misogyny one.
But I guess what I'm leaning towards is like, I feel like you're saying in normative society, people see you as male or female, man or woman, whatever, one of these two genders. But is that actually accurate? I feel like with increasing like intellectualization of gender, right? Like when people get seen on the street, if you're a trans woman or a trans guy, like you might just get clocked, and then they're gonna think you're weird. They're not gonna think you're a man or a woman. They're gonna think you're like some weirdo, right? And like,
but the weirdo is also, to some extent, it's a person who's not fitting that dichotomy, but they're not fitting it in one of two ways, in a sense. I mean,
yeah, they're getting clumped into like that third category of like the other.
No, one second. But here's the thing: that could happen to a trans woman because she is seen as like a man or a male who's not able to be parsed within the man-woman dichotomy, and in that context, they get othered and alienated. But they're perceived that way because they're perceived as like a male who doesn't fit being a man, but they can't like fit them in the woman category either. I think for somebody who's like assigned female at birth and tries to just present as non-binary and gets like rejected for that, they're not othered in the same way, and their incongruence with that third term is not analogous to how it is for assigned male at birth non-binary person who's also getting like otherized in that context.
Even like re-trans, testosteronated females. for lack of better terminology? Just to
I mean-
really get to the specific of what I'm
Well,
referring to.
what I would say there is they're getting othered and being dehumanized essentially. But if you're dehumanized, you're no longer really having a gender identity. I mean, you can't say that non-binary represents the state of not fitting in gender. and
No,
just
no,
being
no. I'm
dehumanized
not saying
because-
that's non-binary. I'm just saying that it does feel like there are more poles of gender that we recognize as society, not as polite society, but as society, that are more than just like male and female. And I guess I'm curious if you think there are any like
So,
neurological.
I'm gonna blow your I'm gonna
Okay.
blow your brain because part of what the serious stuff is, and I haven't even gone into the first topic fully, but I don't actually think there's two genders.
You
The thing
said
is,
that like 2 minutes
it's
ago.
actually a matter of there being a complex gender in the sense of one real gender and then another term that is its obverse or its inverse or its interrelated counterpart that is not entirely a separate thing, but they're defined relationally together. Not as a... So here's the thing. Depending on how stable you consider that configuration
The
would
what?
make you... So the configuration of like male and female sides,
You said the
if you-
Pentagon House?
configuration of
Oh.
two genders. If you see that as like a structure where there's just two equal positions, that essentially would make you a conservative with regards to the roles of men and women. But I don't actually think that's how gender operates. I think that there's essentially one real category of gender that gets applied, and then one kind of fake category that necessarily exists because of the first category, but does not exist independently of it, even though there's still like both positions are necessary for society. So that's going to be the overall argument of everything I'm going to talk about. And what it implies is that there isn't actually two genders, there's one gender. And we'll get into why.